Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the Indiana Arts Homecoming. My name is Ann Ross, and I'm the co-chair of the Homecoming Steering Committee. I am pleased to welcome you to this session. And of course, my card with the name of the session is over here. Listening and Learning with Elder Makers. And this is hosted by John Kay and Jenny Kander. Before I turn it over to John and Jenny, I'm just going to go over a few things. So number one, please remain muted during the presentation until the Q&A so we can give our full attention to today's presenters. Feel free to utilize the chat function to introduce yourself and ask questions throughout the session. If you would like to rename yourself in Zoom, you can do so by hovering over your image, clicking the three dots and renaming yourself by selecting Rename. Captioning is also available during the session throughout the conference. You can turn those on by clicking the closed caption button in the bottom navigation bar. If you have any questions or tech issues throughout the session, please feel free to send Chapin a direct message in the chat. And with that, I'm turning it over to John and Jenny to get started. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Ann. I'm John Kay. I'm actually off camera right now. But I'm going to be sharing my screen in just a second here. And my name's John Kay. As I said, I'm the director of a statewide program called Traditional Arts Indiana, which is a statewide folk arts program that exists to identify, document, and promote the folk and traditional arts of our state. In that work that I've been doing, I've been sharing, I'm sorry, I'm having to open it up another window here. I'm sorry. We thought we had it all done. In that work that I've been doing, often the work that I end up having to do is it takes me to work with some of the oldest people in a community. Those are often the people who are the keepers of traditions, are important tradition bearers, and it wasn't until a few years ago that I started really thinking earnestly about what do the traditional arts and what do arts in general provide for older adults. And so a lot of my work in the past several years has been focused on how we can leverage the arts to improve the quality of life and well-being. And in doing that, I've been relying on my conversations with older adults, sitting down with them and learning what they do, what is actually part of their creative practice, and ways that we can try to inspire and encourage other people to do similar things. And so today's session is very much going to be about sharing that. If you looked at your program, we were supposed to have two people be a part of this. The two participants are Jenny Kander, who's here today, and we're sitting in her lovely apartment here. But also we have Kathy Rucker. Because of health issues, Kathy is unable to be with us today. But I produced a video about Kathy and her work a few years ago, and I wanted to share that video. This was for her work at the Indiana State Fair, and I made this short little documentary, and I think it's just really inspiring. So even though she can't be here, I thought we'd share this for the first 4 or 5 minutes of the beginning of our session.
I discovered clogging at a festival after I moved back to Indiana, and I started looking for some place to take clogging lessons, and I found a place on the south side, and so I decided that I was going to give this a try. And I was young, but not young like you start when you're 12 or 15. You know, I didn't start clogging till I was 40. And people think, you know, why would you want to start clogging when you were 40? But it was fun, it was good exercise, and I had moved back here, and I needed to meet people, and so I decided clogging was going to be the thing I did.
We don't have video.
I lived on the east side of town, and the clogging class was.
No, just audio.
You know, if you teach, you know, we would come to your class.
Okay,
And
sorry about
so
that.
it started in my garage, and it
Well, that was best laid plans. Sorry about that. We thought we tried it beforehand and it worked. I'm not sure what happened on that. Anyway, without any further belaboring of this, we're going to have this conversation with Jenny Kander. Jenny Kander is a resident of Beltrace in Bloomington, Indiana. She's done lots of programs with me over the past several years. And what I've really enjoyed about Jenny's work is that she embodies the ethic of creative aging. She's a poet, she's a doll maker, she's a calligraphy artist, she's a storyteller, and often she's a leader in many ways. She's somebody that gets things started, encourages other people, and shares her talents with other folks. And I think that that becomes one of the important parts of creative aging, is it's not just about art making, but what you do with art making. And you've very much, Jenny, shared art making with so many people in this community. And I want to thank you, first of all, for that. So we'll just start our conversation. Jenny, you have a very interesting life story. You've lived lots of places before you ended up making your home in Indiana. And could you give us the somewhat of a Reader's Digest version of your life, where you come from, where you've lived, and how you ended up here?
I come from South Africa. I was born in Johannesburg in the Transvaal in South Africa. The Transvaal being 6,000 feet up above sea level, very dry area. Excuse me. And I married an Israeli who was based in London at the time. Well, yeah, in London at the time. So I went with him to live in England for 2 years before going to Israel, which was back to Israel for him. For me, it was new. And I wondered why it had a strange smell. It had a very peculiar smell. And then I discovered I was pregnant. So my daughter was born in Israel, and later my son. And then we went back to South Africa for health reasons pertaining to my husband. And from there we came out to the States. I think I'm getting this right.
Nevertheless, that's
Yes.
4 continents that you've lived on, right?
Yes. Yes, it
That's
is.
pretty impressive.
Well, very interesting, really interesting. And it's strange how long ago they seem. I didn't want to go back to South Africa, but my husband had lost an eye, and it was his choice what we do. And my mother had always said that my husband was more South African than I was, which I suppose was a complaint. But anyway, I've ended up in the States and loved living in Bloomington. We came to Bloomington. My daughter was here. And yeah, I really got involved with poetry. I've written bad poetry all my life, but I decided that when I came here, that I would take some classes, which I did at the Waldron, and then broke away and formed a poetry group, which was going up, was still going, and still is actually. I'm hesitating because the pandemic has interfered. We've had to split up, and we send each other by email the poems for critique that we're writing at the moment.
But I'll be a gentleman and I won't ask you your age, but could you tell us how old you were when you started the poetry group, if you remember, roughly?
Well, I'd ask you to do the maths. I'm 88 now.
Okay, 88.
Yeah, which I'm surprised about. I never expected to live till 80. And I say a daily prayer not to live till 100. I would have lost my mind by then. I'd rather lose physically than mentally. Anyway, when I started the poetry, oh Lord, I don't know, 20 years ago.
So you were already in retirement age. You were in your late 60s at that point.
Yes, I had retired. But not understanding the way that America works, it cost me my Social Security, which I was very unimpressed about.
Mm.
I retired at 81. But I also formed a journal group. And that became a writing group, just a writing group. And that I formed about 28 years ago.
Fantastic. And what type of people participate in the poetry group and the general writing group?
Well, the poetry group for poets, of course.
Are they retirees like yourself, or are they all ages?
No, they're all ages.
Okay.
They're all ages. There was only one woman who was really older. She was older than me, and she's since died, and we miss her.
Okay. But I think that's important, is that even though you're reaching this retirement age, you're looking for new possibilities and you're surrounding yourself with people of all different ages. And that's good. I think that helps keep us socially connected and vital throughout the life.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk more about poetry and writing here in a second, but you've got these things that are sitting in front of you. They're almost like your collaborators here, sitting in the chair right next to you here and running in front of you. Can you tell us a little bit about the dolls that you make, where that comes from?
These insects?
Or you can do the insects or the dolls, the people on your friends here on the table.
This is Molly Rose.
Molly Rose.
And she's got the longest legs of all the dolls. And she's very proud of her hair. She's got a good hair day, good bad hair day. And just a sweet smile.
She's very sweet.
Yes.
I like the little rose pin that she has on her.
Well, that's been given to her by an admirer who found it on a sale, thought of Molly, and brought it to her with a very sweet note. So,
do you have the note with you?
no, I don't. I don't, unfortunately. I don't know what Molly did with it. But what she has got is an antique silk skirt. Very, very lovely fabric, actually.
And each one of your dolls, you've made several hundred by now, I would imagine.
Oh,
More, thousands?
No, I wouldn't go that far.
But over 100, well over 100. Yeah, so
yes.
it's quite a few. And so many of them have, maybe all of them, have personalities to them and stories that go along with them. Tell us about that.
People ask me how I write the stories and the expression on their faces and so on, because they're all a bit quirky. when I say that the dolls settle, the dolls decide that. They settle the way they're going to look. Sometimes I have to take off the faces I've sewn on them because they're just not right. And the doll is actually saying no. So I listen to her or him always. And I think that each doll suggests what they want said or what they're going to look like, color, hair, all the details.
And why dolls? Where did doll making come from? I mean, I can understand the poetry and the writing and like, but why dolls?
The dolls came from a primitive magazine that I found called Prims. I found that in some bookstore. And I was fascinated by them. They're just so interesting. They come from a time when people made the dolls for their children. They didn't have access to any dolls, so they would use anything, even corn cobs or dried apples or for heads. And that fascinated me. I took that home. And shortly afterwards, I was ill and I had to stay home. And so I thought, okay, I'll make some. It'll be interesting, know how to sew. And it started from there.
Had you seen rag dolls growing up or when your children were little or anything like that? Had you seen anything like these before?
I hadn't seen any Prims, if that's what you're asking. I never played with dolls as a child. I played with animals, stuffed animals. But I've made these. My daughter wasn't interested in playing. My son certainly was scornful. But I made for my grandchildren in England. They have some of those flip-flop dolls. I don't know what they're called, but you turn them one way with their skirt down over their other head. And you can turn them back the other way, and the fabrics are different, and the faces are different. And so they're 2 times dolls.
So it's an interesting art form, and you can definitely make some interesting creations from them. What else do you get? We could say why dolls, but why spend time creating them? What do you get from making things, whether it's a poem or a doll?
It's imperative. I have to make things, whether I'm knitting or I have to do something.
Why?
I don't know. But it's great fun to inspire other people, because I think a lot of people do enjoy seeing what I'm doing, and they wait for the next one. And I imagine that some do it themselves. In fact, I'm sure they do. They've told me.
So it almost becomes contagious. If you're around creative people, the odds of you becoming more creative, but the greater are the odds of you becoming creative.
I would think so. It must have implied me. It did imply me. I had an aunt who could make anything. She sewed, she tattered, she crocheted, she knitted. She was amazing. And I've always remembered that once she said to me, "You have good hands," meaning that I could do things with them. And that was of huge value to me. I was inspired to be like her, and she was quite old when I knew her. Well, I was quite young. Yeah, she was my auntie birth.
So you make all of these dolls. What do you do with them?
I put them in a basket.
You can lift this up perhaps and show there's a whole basket full of them down there. So you've made them, but those, if you've made hundreds of them, that's not hundreds in that basket.
No, I sometimes give one as a present to someone. It's a good question what I do with them. I've sold some.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to sell more because there's no point in them lying in a basket. So there's a fair coming up here at Beltrace at Christmas time, and we're asked to donate something that we've made. And the money will go to whatever charity we choose. So that'll take care of some of them.
Fantastic. That'd be nice. Now you've made the dolls for, well, that's how we came to know each other, because of the doll making that you did. I came to talk to you about that. But then you've got other things that are kind of like dolls, but different, that are sitting there next to you. What are those? Also the bugs that you've made.
Yeah, my bugs. They're such fun. Well, I think they're fun. They've got beads for noses, at least beads for eyes, or sequins, and pipe cleaners for feelers. Little, what are these called? Cotton reels.
You know, looks like spools.
Yes. All
Very
sorts
good.
of different kinds of things. This has got a very fat tassel that came off a tunic for a head, and gleaming eyes.
Where you talk about the tassel off of a tunic? Where do you get your materials?
I look for them, I see them.
You just kind of found, you're not shopping for them necessarily, but you're finding them places?
No,
Or
yes, I'm finding them places. These wings are ribbon that my mother-in-law gave me a long time ago.
finding new uses for old things.
Yeah.
Kind of a fun way to keep things near, meaningful things near you, but also giving them new life and purpose.
Oh, yes.
So why don't you show us that little mouse?
The mouse has a skirt. She's also got very flirty eyes.
We have to hold it up just a little bit for people to see.
That's
Very
my
good. What's her name?
Pepto-Bismol.
And just because she's that color?
Yes. Yes.
Very good. Well, we could talk the whole time about your doll making, but you've got some other creative stuff that you do as well. You have some poetry that we talked about starting the writing group and the poetry group. Do you have some pieces you'd like to do for us?
I have two. I wanted three, but I can't find the third.
Uh-oh.
So I have two, and I would love to read them.
Very good. And do you read your poetry out very often?
No.
No.
No. They're both concerning the wind. I'm not sure why that happened, but the first is called Let the Wind Lead You. Step outside tonight and let the soft dark enfold you. Breathe it in, breathe in it. Stand where you can reach the closest stars and know that in time the further ones will be yours to cup as well. Romance the moon and grace her light, allowing her to become your pearl lantern, soft glowing your wishes, your desires out of the shadows, now a gleam in focus. Follow the path into the woods and pause to listen. 100 voices speak to you, clamor for recognition, response. What are you to do? Let the wind lead you. Be not swayed, but fluid, flowing, identified with the leaves and dancing, an acolyte, obedient as they. Are there perhaps apples on the bough? Become one just for now. What does your body need to do? First, experience the fruit, its firm spherical round, its skin gloss and juices within. Will your breathing help you bridge the difference between your cells? Become firm, full, still. Exude the scent of apple, its silence. The umbilical stalk can fall. Its time is past. Trace your way back to the familiar, slowly and with care.
That's beautiful. And you read it so well.
Thank you.
There was a lot of movement in that, like a stroll through both the surrounding area and life.
Mm-hmm.
But does literature, does writing, does poetry give you a type of mental mobility, a way of traveling? You know, one of the things that happens sometimes when people get older, especially for a world traveler like yourself, it's smaller. Our apartments get smaller. We were talking about that today. The places we go become sometimes fewer. How does writing maybe help with that, if at all?
Excuse me. I'm participating in a writing group here at Beltrays. We have finished now using, oh my God, I've gone blank. Writing Down the Bones.
Oh, yes.
By Natalie Goldberg. It's a wonderful book. And I think it's really these two that I brought are prose poems, which I have not up until now written that often. But I'm writing a lot of them now, and it's lent so much. Oh, I don't know how to say it. Just more, I really don't know how to say it, John.
It's okay.
But it's enlarged my writing. Perhaps that's a way of saying it. And there was a lot of magical feeling about the poem I've just read.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to get that down, the movement of the wind. And this next poem is also to do with the wind, but dealing with it differently.
I just wanted to say one thing. I think that it's really, really wonderful that you just described for everyone how you're continuing to grow. You said you didn't do the prose poetry, but now you're trying this out and you're continuing to learn and you're adding to. And I think that's an important part of creative aging is, you know, it's not always just doing the same things over and over, just that repetition, although that can be very productive and work, but also stretching yourself, trying to reach and keep having some place that you're going to, much like your poem was it's almost alluding.
You're making it sound much more conscious than it is to me.
I don't think that it's conscious. I'm just saying you have this in your life, and I think that we on the outside can look at it and say, oh, it's really beautiful what you like, how you live your life. I think we can learn from it. That's what I'm trying.
Thank you. You're very reassuring because I'm quite convinced that I'm losing my mind.
No, just know that you're very, very smart for an apple. Maybe you can read the second poem. Maybe you can read the second poem for us.
Oh, goodness, I'm sorry.
Good.
Right the Wind is the title. A restless wind is shaking in the trees beyond my window, and in a jungle too, and on Bali High. Gulls feeding might get in the way of its sweep down Atlantic shores. What is it like to be the wind? Slide and easy, acrobatic, a whirl of darkness. Here it's spring, and the air tangles in branches so leafy it must rip some down for wind space. Sometimes I believe it emphasizes bird songs, and here's some fun, blowing, surging, clearing a path through vines, tossing aside and thrusting until there's space to whistle up and down a wind scale like a piccolo and flute, giving the oboe depth until it dies down moaning. Yet white sails harness the wind, display its fling as it propels them across miles of lake, widths of bay. Then summer's heat. We can recall the lull torpor that creeps over us as the wind stills and we drowse off over our picnic. The air has become too weighty even to breathe. A robust summer haste sends leaves whirling again, people chasing their whipped away hats, and it keeps them running, draws eddies in for the fun of it, changes direction, and now it brings rain, oh, fresher sport. With winter on its way and wind slapping umbrellas inside out, now watch everyone hanging on, pulled along by swift air's pranks and whims until it swoops away high as roofs, dashes through windows, billowing curtains in its way. Life-giving phenomenon. Wind is its own democracy.
Just observations of to pull together so many strands into that chord of poetry is just so beautiful. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
What is your poetry process? I mean, something like that. It's like I said, you're pulling together all these various ideas into this kind of cohesive whole about the wind. Is it the type of thing that you just sit down and write, or do you have a longer process? Let me take that for you.
No, it's okay. I can put it on the mug.
No, you're not ever supposed to ask writers about their process. It's always varied.
Well, I'm just reading a book at the moment called The Writer's Desk. A number of different writers, and they write about their process, and it's fascinating.
But
I don't know. I really don't know. Don't know how to answer it.
But I would imagine a poem like that was a long time coming. It didn't just happen in a morning.
It was quick.
It is quick?
It was quick.
Oh, really?
Yeah, verses were, when I'm fascinated, sorry.
You need a water?
When I'm It's okay. Actually, I've got some, yeah. Thank you. When I'm fascinated with an idea, in this case, the wind, I was watching that wind, that maple, which is huge. It's really old. And the moment there's a breeze, it responds. And I was watching that sort of twilight one evening, and that started it coming. My best time is about 2 in the morning. When I wake up, I keep pencil and paper next to my bed and write down what comes. Otherwise, it's gone in the morning.
Capturing is always an important part of the creative process, whether it's finding scraps for a doll and pulling it together, or words and ideas on a piece of paper. Capture is an important part of that. Well, why don't we pause and let you rest your voice for just a second? And I'm sure Anna maybe has some questions about doll making. I was supposed to pause with that, or about the poetry, or just for Jenny in general.
Sure, thank you. I do have some questions, but I want to read some of the comments in the chat for you, Jenny. We have some comments from Lisa, I think is her name. Wow, really amazing lady you are, Jenny Kander. Thank you for sharing your life experiences. And Ruth Ann also said, totally amazing. I love hearing her inflection while reading her poems. So you're touching the hearts of people out here that are listening today. So we appreciate that greatly. So I have a couple questions for you. And if we go back to the dolls, you are making insect dolls and your mice and mouse. Do they have stories like your Molly Rose? Do they have stories as well?
Yes, they all have stories. I've had them written down. If I show my dolls at all, I attach their story to them. And they're very short always. They're sort of a summing up of what I consider the essence of that particular doll.
And does the story come first, or is it kind of a little bit of both? That you have a vision for a doll or an insect and then the story comes, or is it a little both?
Yeah, the story comes. The doll tells me the story. Sometimes before I've quite finished making her, but usually once she's finished. Like the doll who loves bagels, but not to eat, to sit on and meditate.
Wonderful.
And sometimes you make a whole cast of characters, of dolls that interact, don't you? I'm thinking about the 3 sisters that you did.
Yes, but that's much more seldom.
Okay.
Is that English? More seldom. Seldomer.
Did you have another question?
I'd love for folks out there, if they have questions, to put them in the chat, but I will go ahead. And I was wondering, here's another question from Miss Chris. Do your dolls come with little information sheets on their personality, not just their story, but also their personality?
No, their personality, they're conveying themselves because of the hair that they've decided they need and their faces and so on. It's just, I suppose, an action story.
So the story is what you pin onto them, so people know their story.
Yeah, people I see when I've shown my dolls, people laugh as much at the stories. They enjoy them as much as they're enjoying the dolls.
Yeah, but you haven't written down the stories, or you have written down some of the stories?
Well, I had them all written down, but over time they've got detached, and I think I've got them in a notebook.
Yeah. at one point you were working on a book about your dolls, kind of trying to come
A
up with,
children's book.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a sore point.
Well, we can say if there are any publishers out there, she's constantly looking. Yeah.
Marvelous. We have another question here for you, Jenny. Are there any new artistic exploration concepts on your horizon? Just curious if you might have another avenue you're interested in exploring. And that's from Ken.
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't understand the last part of that.
Do you have any new art forms or art experiences that you're trying, much like the poetic prose?
Well, the prose poetry, yeah, that's very dear to my heart, very alive. I'm completely dismantling, unraveling a sweater I knitted last winter. Well, yeah, last fall, this time last year. And like a poem, a good poem is badly read, you kill it. And a good sweater, which this was, but badly seamed up, you're killing it. I just couldn't cope with these seams, so I'm undoing the whole thing.
Oh my.
But I was going to say something else in answer to the question, but I think I've forgotten the question.
The question was, do you have any other art forms that you're wanting to dabble into?
I don't think so. I've got enough.
I think you riff on these different things like the dolls. They've migrated into the insects. For a while, you did some dolls that were when there were lots of conversations about migration and immigration. You did some immigrant dolls.
The foreigners.
The
I
foreigners.
call them the foreigners.
As a way of kind of raising conversations around those topics. I think you from what I've seen, you have ways of taking the art forms that you do and making them current and fresh all the time.
Well, thank you. That's great. But right now it's these prose poems that I'm just fascinated with it, learning more about them.
Any more, Anne?
Yes, we have some more. So Lisa says you're funny and humorous and inspirational. And I wish I was your next door neighbor.
I'm so happy with a neighbor.
Yes. And Mary said that she suggested that there's always self-publishing and she would love to read the doll book with pictures and stories accompanying them. And in addition to that, she wondered if you consider writing memoir vignettes. And if you have, who would be your intended audience to write memoirs?
To raise.
Write memoir. Have you written your life story, a memoir of your life? You've written so many things. And if you did, who would you be writing it for?
It's difficult. I did in this writing group 1 week write up my life story. Not so much where I traveled, but what I felt had gone into making who I am. And that went down very well. I think I wrote that well. The summary, but I don't like writing about my life. I think I was too much like my mother. And usually people who are like mother and daughter, they clash. And I clashed. I've been a rebel all my life, and so yeah, I don't like getting into that.
So that doesn't appeal to you. That is fine.
Yeah.
I just appreciate you sharing your story with us today, the little bits that you have. Anything else, Anna?
Yeah, there's some more. Lee is offering, he said, he illustrates for self-published authors and know a very nice publisher if you would like one. So we can share that connection with you later. And then Tiara has a question for you. So in addition to learning some of the skills from your aunt that you learned for making the dolls, how did you come to learn your different artistic skills with your writing, through your own or through books or taking classes or videos?
Yes, I had poetry classes I'm grateful for at the Waldron here. I attended a number of semesters of poetry, and that was delightful. I really enjoyed that, although we were mixed class from not terribly good at all to much more skilled. And in the end, what I did was invite those that I considered more skilled and that would stimulate more growth, all of us from each other, to form a group, which we formed, and as I say, still goes to this day.
And you've published your poetry, haven't you?
Yes, I've got 2 chapbooks published. One actually was about well, no, it wasn't my life so much as my father and aunts and uncles and grandparents, my Russian family. They were all immigrants from Russia.
So can I ask, with your wind poem that you read, the second one, where you had the quick inspiration and you said that it was very quick writing that from looking out your window and seeing the movement in the tree. Are there other ways that you might have a vision in your mind of something before you then put it into words that you might not see literally, but it's in your mind and then it comes out through your poem?
Yes, that's a lot like collage, actually, which also you don't even realize at the time what you're representing, what you're doing, as a rule. And I always tell people that I've given classes to on collage, hang it up, live with it, and see what it says to you.
That brings up a thing that was going to be the next thing that we got to, if we had time, is Jenny is quite a collage artist. Jenny, can you tell us a little bit about how you got started doing collage? I'm going to see if I can drop this down in here.
Well,
maybe
let's take Molly Rose.
Take Molly Rose off here, and you can see a little bit. Maybe you can see a little bit of her collage work here.
That one is
Maybe I can.
birth, death. Yeah, birth and death, really.
Birth and death.
It goes across the ages and across the world, different places, like the Egyptian Coptic jars. Excuse me. This is African ancestor worship, the god of fertility. It's not very helpful saying that because I've forgotten which culture it comes from. It looks like Mexican or roundabout there, but I've forgotten. I put this lovely Rabu fellow in to have some noise, some sound. He's got his mouth open, because the rest is so silent.
There's movement again, sound and movement in your mixing of media here.
Right. And then there are various womb images, uterus, and lovely spine. I'm not sure what that lovely spine. I started with the spine. And handwriting. I always like using handwriting. That and bread I use a lot.
So death and birth.
We have a
What-
comment here. We have a
What?
comment here about how absolutely beautiful it is from Tara, but we wondered from Ken, of all these art forms that you're showing us now, this new collage and the dolls and the poetry, but you clearly value handwork and working with your hands. And you've learned that, and with so many young people these days not having those skills and not being taught those because they're on keyboards or cell phones. Do you have any thoughts or advice about encouraging handwork in our world today?
Yes, I'm speaking personally now because a lot of people will be annoyed about this, but I don't consider any machine, any electrical thing, anything like that as people can be very skilled at using them, but I don't consider them artistic at all. That they can use to artistic ends, but there's something between you and the artistry. You're using it to get there, but to me, there shouldn't be anything in between. I know this is ridiculous in this day and age, but I can't see. There's just a step in between, which you can't use any of those things to do collage, for instance.
What I like about what you're talking about here and what you demonstrate in your work is there's two different things. There's the artistry and then there's the craft. You know, you have the craftsmanship, the technique to do the dolls, but then you also have the artistry of the stories that go into them and the conceptions that go behind them. And it sometimes when other things move you away from the handwork or even the writing work and that type of thing, it can pull you away from the craft. There's lots of things that can, I could argue the other way just as easily. But I think for you, I think that what you're trying to bring out is this notion of the difference between artistry and craft, having being connected with the material through hand, through needle, through paste, through handwriting.
It's a hand, it's like gardening. You get your hand in the soil and you get in touch with, it's a direct touch, which the moment you're using these cell phones or whatever, I've just bought myself a new phone yesterday, and frankly, I'm appalled. I'm going to have to learn the damn thing now. And it's so dead.
Any other questions about this? We have more collage we can show.
Don't have any questions from anyone else. Have some thoughts, and feel free to unmute if you'd like to just ask in person.
I'm gonna grab another collage while people are maybe unmuting and asking questions here.
We've got about 5 minutes left, 6 minutes. So
Yeah, that's a good one to show.
wow.
I was missing my garden, as I don't have a garden anymore. And then I gardened in pots, and then I don't have a balcony anymore. So I've gardened on the windowsill, but still I was missing my garden, a proper garden. So I did this collage, which made me feel a lot better.
Are these places in your mind or places you've seen or just visions of different gardens in your mind?
If I'm going to be honest, I'll say it's pictures I found.
They reminded you of your garden.
Yes, well, they're obviously burgeoning gardens. And it doesn't matter where it is, as long as it's growing and it's healthy, it's doing well. And I connect with it.
So moving from Ken's question about handwork and being able to do things, one of the things that happens in later life is you have to adapt. Some things you used to be able to do, you used to be able to have a garden, you can't have a garden. There's adaptability, and I see this as being a process of adaptation. Can you speak about that process of moving forward in your creative life and your personal life?
You don't have, if you are a creative sort of person and you come from a creative family, which I do, and I have two very creative children, it's a matter of getting old, not having any option about that, but not feeling one should have any option. It's another phase of life. And to me, it's the only way to honor it. I mean, otherwise you find a lot of crappy old people.
To honor it, do you mean the life you've been given?
Yes, yes. And there are a lot of people who are really crabby about, I mean, it's not fun. What's the saying? Something about not being a sissy. Old age is not for sissies. And that's true, because you get aches and pains and you lose a lot.
But I think you've shown us also that you can gain some things too.
Oh, yes. Yeah. It's a decision making, actually. One has to make decisions, and hopefully they are sensible decisions. Well, not sensible, creative.
Well, Jenny, I know I'm looking at the clock and it's saying we have like 2 minutes left or one. And so just enough time to say
Goodbye.
well, thank you, first of all. Thank you so much for
welcome.
speaking to us, and thank you so much for the good you put into the world and the inspiration that you give all of us. I just really am thankful that I had this opportunity to share that.
Well, I thank you, John. I really do. I love sharing.
I can tell. Anything else? Go ahead, Anne.
Thank you. There's just, everybody is saying thank you and what a wonderful time. This has been an incredible inspiration. Thank you both, Jenny and John. We greatly appreciate it, and hope you have a good rest of the day to everyone. Thank you again for joining us. Bye.
Thank you all.
Bye.